The scent at first was barely noticeable, just a faint, acrid tang on the breeze, easily dismissed as exhaust from the nearby highway. Liam, a young father with 2 energetic kids, had always loved his neighborhood. It was quiet, tree-lined, a modest but comfortable corner of the city, conveniently close to his job, a large industrial plant manufacturing various plastic components, sat about a mile downwind. He never gave it much thought. It was simply part of the landscape, a steady hum in the background of his life. After all, he didn't buy their plastic products directly, and his job wasn't connected to them. He thought of it as a separate world. But as the months turned into seasons, the faint tang grew bolder. A thin, almost imperceptible film of dust began to settle on his car, on his windowsills, even on the leaves of his small backyard garden. Then came the persistent coughs, first his youngest daughter's, then his own, a dry, irritating tickle that wouldn't go away. His elderly neighbor, Mrs. Albright, who had lived on the street for 50 years, started complaining about her chronic asthma worsening. "It's that factory, dear," she'd wheeze, pointing a trembling finger in its direction. "Never used to be like this." Liam felt a knot of frustration tighten in his stomach. Why was this happening? They weren't customers of the factory, they weren't employees, yet they were paying a price that never appeared on a bill. This insidious cost, imposed upon Liam and his community by an entity they had no direct transaction with, was a classic example of a negative externality. In the world of economics, an externality is simply an unintended side effect of an economic activity that affects a third party who wasn't involved in the original transaction. The factory, in its pursuit of profit, was producing plastic components efficiently and selling them at a competitive price. For them, the cost of production included raw materials, labor, electricity, and rent, what economists call the private cost. But they weren't paying for the clean air they polluted, or the clean water they subtly contaminated, or the increased healthcare bills borne by Liam's family and Mrs. Albright. These were hidden costs, swept under the rug of the market, absorbed by the surrounding community without compensation. Liam felt a surge of indignation. The factory's products might be cheap on the market, but the true social cost of those plastics was far higher than their price tag suggested. It included the private costs of production plus the external costs of environmental damage and human suffering. This was a classic case of market failure, a situation where the free market, left to its own devices, fails to allocate resources efficiently. Because the factory didn't have to pay for the pollution, it had no incentive to reduce it, leading to too much pollution and a less than ideal outcome for society as a whole. "It's not fair," Liam muttered to himself one evening, watching the plumes from the factory stack. "They make their money, and we get the coughs and the dirty cars. We didn't sign up for this." The injustice burned, a silent resentment simmering beneath the surface of his quiet neighborhood. But just as Liam began to feel consumed by this unseen burden, life, in its subtle way, offered a different perspective, revealing another facet of this interconnected economic web. One sunny Saturday morning, as he pushed his daughter on the swing in their local park, he noticed how vibrant the flower beds were, how carefully the trees were pruned, how clean the pathways gleamed. He hadn't paid a direct fee to use the park, nor had he contributed specifically to its upkeep beyond his general taxes. Yet he benefited immensely from its beauty, its clean air, and its safe space for his children to play. His property value, like all homes nearby, was subtly enhanced by the park's presence. Later that week, while driving through a rural area on a weekend trip, he saw vast fields of blooming sunflowers, stretching like a golden carpet under the vast sky. Nearby, nestled among some trees, were rows of bustling beehives. He thought about how those bees, diligently collecting nectar for honey, were simultaneously pollinating the flowers, ensuring the next harvest for the farmer, a benefit the farmer didn't directly pay for. These were positive externalities, unintended benefits generated by an economic activity that spill over to affect third parties who haven't paid for them. Education is another powerful example. When individuals receive a good education, it doesn't just benefit them personally. It benefits society as a whole through increased innovation, productivity, and informed citizenship. Even something as simple as getting vaccinated isn't just about protecting yourself. It helps create herd immunity, protecting the entire community, especially those who can't be vaccinated. Liam began to see the economy not just as a series of isolated transactions, but as a vast, intricate symphony of hidden costs and benefits, constantly reverberating through communities. The realization hit Liam with profound clarity. The economy wasn't just about what happened between a buyer and a seller. Every economic decision, big or small, created ripples that affected everyone, whether they signed a contract or not. The loud party next door that disturbed his sleep was a negative externality. The well-maintained garden of his neighbor, boosting his property value, was a positive one. The chaotic traffic congestion that made his commute longer, forcing him to buy more gas and wasting his time, was another example of a negative externality where individual car usage imposed costs on the collective. He understood now why his attempts to solve the pollution issue just by talking to the factory hadn't worked. The market wasn't designed to see or account for these costs. This understanding spurred Liam to action. He joined a local environmental group, a coalition of concerned citizens advocating for change. He learned that making these invisible costs and benefits visible and accounted for often required intervention beyond the simple market mechanism. This typically involved government intervention or regulation. One proposed solution for pollution, for instance, was a pollution tax or a carbon tax, a levy on companies for each unit of pollutant they emit. This forces the polluter to internalize the externality, meaning the cost of the pollution is now factored into their production expenses. If it costs them more to pollute, they have an economic incentive to find cleaner ways to produce, ultimately making the price of their product reflect its true social cost. Similarly, for positive externalities like education or vaccinations, governments might offer subsidies, financial incentives to encourage activities that benefit society as a whole. Liam, armed with this newfound knowledge, found himself at community meetings, speaking passionately about the true cost of unchecked production, advocating for policies that would bring balance back to their lives. In conclusion, Liam's journey from frustrated homeowner to informed advocate transformed his understanding of money and the economy. He realized that the free lunch often comes with a hidden bill, paid by unsuspecting third parties, while sometimes unexpected gifts are bestowed without direct payment. Every economic activity, from a local factory to a global industry, creates these unseen ripples, these positive and negative externalities. Understanding these hidden costs and benefits isn't just an academic exercise. It's essential for building a more just, efficient, and interconnected society. It's about ensuring that the true cost of production, including its impact on our health, our environment, and our communities, is reflected in the price we pay. It's about recognizing the profound, often invisible, ways we are all linked, and how, by making these hidden forces visible, we can collectively work towards a more equitable future.